Hey Buns, Zepla here with another media tour video for you from the Dawntrail preview event in Las Vegas. I did get a chance to play Pictomancer and Viper, and Viper video will probably come out first because it's a lot easier. It was a lot easier to make. You might have heard then in the Viper video, we were joking around about how play Viper and see how long it takes you to figure that out, and then go play Pictomancer and see how long it's going to take you to figure that one out. And I literally spent twice as long on Pictomancer trying to learn it than I did on Viper. I'll be honest, my initial impression of Pictomancer was a little bit... I was scared. I was actually scared and intimidated and overwhelmed by this job. I'm not usually good at piecing these things together, but I was asking around the people around me, and other people seem to have similar struggles. But don't let that scare you too much, because although I struggled in the beginning, the more time I spent with it, the more I came to appreciate Pictomancer. And now that I feel like I have a pretty decent handle on how everything's meant to work, I really like the job, and I think people are going to have a lot of fun optimizing this job. Now, when I was talking about Viper, I'm pretty sure I was just like, hey, just press the shiny buttons. You're welcome. That's the whole video. Video done. Next. But for the Pictomancer, it's going to be a little different because it's just, there's too much going on to gloss over the details. And so I'm going to try to explain to you how I understand the job, and we'll work through it together. We'll go from there. And just to clarify, I'm not here to try to figure out a rotation. There are smarter people in the community that will do a better job at that, okay? I just wanted to go through all the aspects of Picto and talk about them, and I just think this is going to be the best way to sort of build on concepts. First major thing about Picto is you have these ether hue spells, and so this is like your basic spells, your basic spell combo. There's fire in red, wind in green, water in blue. You just press these buttons to build your gauge. And there are stronger versions of these spells, like there's thunder in magenta, blizzard in blue. But actually when I played, I felt like they just progressed automatically. Like you press fire and then you can press thunder. So you just press the button, right? So this didn't require any brain power for me, which was good. What you'll notice is that pressing these buttons using these ether hue spells gives you white paint on your job palette gauge. White paint can then be used to cast Holy in White. Holy in White feels kind of to cast. It's low damage, it's instant cast. It's kind of there just to help you with movement from what I can tell. You'll also see the squiggly line on your job gauge. That's your rainbow gauge, and at 50 gauge you can use subtractive palette, which will give you one black ink. So you'll notice you're going to be collecting these little circles of paint, and they'll be white. But if you press subtractive palette, then one of them will turn to black paint. You can only have one black paint on your job gauge at a time, and you can use the black paint to do a good damage button. Meteor in black. It's instant cast. Is good. Big damage button. Black paint, good. But yeah, subtractive palette flips over your palette and it changes the element of your ether hue. So here's an example where fire, thunder, holy are available. This is all one category. Then when you get subtractive palette, it swaps to water, blizzard, and meteor, which is kind of cool, but thankfully you don't have to worry about that too much. You only press the lit up buttons. Anyway, well, you can't press a button that's grayed out. So now that we talked about your basic spells, ether hue spells, let's move on to the next very important aspect of Pictomancer, which is your motifs. This is those canvases on your job gauge. From left to right, there is the character motif, the weapon motif, and the landscape motif. Now, what these do when you press these buttons, the motif buttons, is it will paint a picture on your job gauge. So if you start with your first character motif, usually starting off it's going to be the palm motif, you press the button and it paints a palm on your job canvas of the job gauge. These canvases are kind of giant. Like, I feel like they take up a lot of real estate on the screen, right? I actually didn't check simple mode. I don't want simple mode. I want to have, I'm going to have it. I wish maybe I could separate them out. Okay, anyways, let's talk about the palm motif, the first character motif. Motif spell, I don't know about it because it has a cast time and it doesn't do any damage. It will cast instantly if you're out of combat, but it always kind of felt like because it doesn't do any damage and it's just a big cast time, you gotta figure out when is going to be an appropriate time for you to do this. If you cast 3 motifs in a row, you're not actually doing anything yet. You're just, it kind of felt like I'm just standing there and I'm thinking, dang, I better think of a better time to cast these to paint these pictures because I just feel like I'm painting pictures doing nothing. But you are doing something when you cast motifs because you're getting ready for the big moments to happen. Okay, you have to have these motifs first before you can cast your special motif attacks. So starting with the character motif, after you paint the palm, you can then cast Palm Muse, which is a big 1000 potency spell. It's going to justify you standing there painting, right? So you cast Palm Muse, and then once you do that, there's a couple things that happen. First of all, the picture you painted goes away, which makes sense. Your pictures come to life, and now it's coming off of your job page. It's not there anymore. So it consumes the image that you had, and the button changes, and it's grayed out, even if off cooldown, because you can't cast the Muse if you don't have a motif. So then the next step is to put another motif on your character canvas, and you'll notice that the palm motif has been changed to wing motif. After you paint the wings, then you can cast Wing Muse. So you're going to see a pattern here, right? First motif on the canvas, Muse brings it to life and consumes the image on your canvas so that it can do an attack. And so it's another 1000 potency spell, your Winged Muse. So then it loses a charge and the button gets grayed out because, again, you need the motif on your canvas to cast the Muse. I know I'm repeating myself, but I think this might help some people because like I said, I had a hard time here. Then you'll see the wing motif button has changed to a claw motif. But wait a minute, there's a Moogle now that's appeared on your job gauge after you finished with your palm and wing attacks. You're gonna see him bouncing there and singing. The Moogle is ready. So at this point, you're gonna have a new button light up. Basically, like it's like Moogle Akmorn. It kind of felt like it's Palm Blast. I will say this is one of the parts where I got confused when I was trying to learn. It felt counterintuitive in the beginning because looking at your gauge, it's like, okay, 2 out of 3. It looks like, okay, I have a palm, I have a wing, and it looks like I need something else. The Moogle is singing and bouncing up and down, and to me at that moment, it felt like I'm charging up. But no, it's not charging up. Moogle is ready. When you see the Moogle is ready. After you got palm and wing, you can already cast Mog Blast, Mog Beam. I think it's actually called Mog of the Ages. I'm going to call it Mog Beam. It's a really cool, fun button to press when you have 2 out of 3 on your bar, which threw me off in the beginning. Because again, my brain is thinking you need 3 out of 3 because it looks like there's 3 spots, but that's not how it is. And then another sort of tripping point in my learning process here that made it confusing is that the next motif that comes available after you're done with the palm and the wing is claw. And the icon to me looked kind of like a Moogle paw, but doesn't have anything to do with a Moogle because the Moogle is ready after palm and wing. We've established that. The Moogle was ready, the Moogle blasted, the Moogle is gone after the blast. So what is the claw for? It's not a Moogle paw. I just had this moment when I was learning where I was so confused as a new player because my brain naturally wants to put the 3 things together: palm, wing, claws. I was thinking, well, now I have 3 icons on my gauge. It feels like something cool should be available now. Maybe some new special attack. And I'm still thinking there's a Moogle. Like, I guess I'm still making a Moogle. Like, will there be another Mog Beam? But no, there's nothing special that happens when you get 3 icons. It's better to think of these 3 icons as like a record of the Muse attacks that you've already done by looking at the gauge. It's kind of just helping you keep track of what you've done so far. After casting your Claw Muse attack, a new motif ability becomes available, and this time it's a Fang motif. And so if you're anything like me, when the Fang motif pops up is when you start feeling confused about what you're painting. At this point, I was still like, palm, wing is Moogle, paw could be Moogle, it's like yellow, but I don't know. Could be. And then the Fang pops up, and I'm like, damn, this is a vicious Moogle. I'm gonna paint like a really nasty Moogle. So I cast the Fang motif, which paints fangs on the job gauge, and then you can use your Muse button, Fang's Muse this time. And like before, it consumes the Fang motif image that you had on your job gauge canvas, and that loses a charge, the button's grayed out. The Fang motif button now changes back to palm motif, so that's resetting the cycle. But wait, you'll also notice that Medine has appeared, and your 3 symbols that you had are gone also. So your muse symbols are all gone because we've reset the cycle, and this is the end of the cycle. Medine has appeared. You also have a new button light up, Medine Blast. So that's what we were working towards with the claw and the fangs, right? The Medine is this greenish yellow lion guy. So it's like a Moogle, but upgraded and definitely more vicious. So it was kind of on the right track. I did struggle with this at first because it took me a while to figure out what the Medine was. Like, is this a lion? The claw is his? Okay. So once you understand this, it's all going to fall into place, I'm pretty sure. That's why I wanted to take you through this journey in this way, so that you can understand some of the points where I got confused. So anyway, to sum up, from your character motif spells, there's 2 really big exciting moments. There's one where you summon the Moogle and you do Mog Blast, and then there's the other where you summon the Medine, which is the big potency, big fun damage finisher. And I think those aren't the official names, but you know what it is. I think it's Mog of the Ages and Retribution of the Medine for Mog Beam and Medine Beam. So Mog Beam or Mog of the Ages becomes available after you consume or clear away both the palm motif and the wing motif from your job gauge canvas, which you can do by casting Palm Muse and Wing Muse respectively. Similarly, Medine Blast becomes available after you clear away the Claw and the Fang motifs from your job gauge, and you do that by casting the Claw Muse and Fang Muse respectively. So every 2 times you consume a motif by casting its corresponding muse attack, you have an exciting new button to press and a new creature to summon. I think it's actually smart the way that they've set up the job gauge, because this way you can see that you have 3 symbols that have been generated by your muse attacks. So you know that when it's full, the next time you cast a muse attack spell, you can activate Medine Blast, which is the big finisher in the chain. So next, I want to talk about my personal favorite part of Pictomancer's kit, the hammer, the weapon motif, which is a hammer. So this is a super fun button to press. This is the button everybody liked. Even when I asked around and we were all, kind of struggling to put all the pieces together for Picto, because it's a fairly complex job. But one thing that everybody liked to press is hammer. Hammer good. It kind of scratches the same itch as Fell Cleave, like with inner release on a warrior, but it's ranged. It's like a triple cast. It does critical direct hits, and it's 3. Oh man, it's good. It's a really good button. But I couldn't fit 3 of these in burst, and that was something that confused me. I guess you're not meant to fit all 3 into burst, but we can talk about that a little later. The point is, good button, make hammer, smash. The next motif is the landscape motif. This does a lot of things. It's got a gigantic tooltip, and this is your big party buff button. It's your party-wide 5% damage buff. It gives you Star Prism that you can press, which is a very cool looking button that does a big damage, and it heals the team a little bit. It's like an ass-size level heal or a stacked Curing Waltz. Starry also gives you Subtractive Spectrum, and this just lets you press Subtractive Palette anytime. So even if you don't have 50 rainbow gauge like you would normally need to press that button, you can press the button. And the other really important button for Pictomancer is Rainbow Drip. This is a gorgeous button that puts this huge rainbow and there's like flowers. It's so Lisa Frank and wonderful. I love this button, and I wish I could just press it all the time, but I can't because it has a 3.9 second cast time. It also does a ton of damage. So obviously you're wanting to activate the buff that makes this instant cast. That buff is called Rainbow Bright. How do you get Rainbow Bright? Well, here's where things might start to get a little tricky. There's only one way to get Rainbow Bright, and that is from Starry Muse. Once you press Starry Muse and you consume that motif from your canvas, it gives you Hyper Fantasia. You have 5 stacks of Hyper Fantasia. This is a problem that you need to solve. You have 5 stacks that you now need to get rid of as quickly as possible during your burst, because whenever you get rid of all of those 5 stacks, your reward for doing that is Rainbow Bright. So how do you get rid of these stacks of hyperphantasia that were given to you by Starry Muse? Well, there's certain spells that you might see in their tooltip. It will say this action is affected by hyperphantasia. For example, Star Prism, that ability you get immediately after casting Starry Muse. You can press Star Prism, and that is affected by hyperphantasia. What that means is when you press that button, it is going to reduce your stacks of hyperphantasia by 1. So good job, you got rid of 1. Now you got 4 more to get rid of during burst before you're rewarded with your Rainbow Bright. So how do you get rid of the other stacks of hyperphantasia? Well, not all of your abilities are affected by hyperphantasia. So like your hammer is not affected by hyperphantasia. So unfortunately, you cannot just bam, 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 like I tried to do for a bit. That's not affected. That's not going to lower your stacks. So what is affected by hyperphantasia is those basic attacks, the Ether Hue spells that I mentioned at the very beginning of the video. So each time you cast one of those spells, like Fire, Thunder, Holy, or Meteor, all those, it's going to reduce your hyperphantasia stacks, ultimately so that you can get rid of them all and cast your instant cast rainbow spell during your burst. I should mention too that Meteor in black does a good bit of damage as well. That's another good damage button, and it's affected by hyperphantasia. So you want to press that at the same time, like maybe right before you press your Rainbow Bright. Then hopefully you will have still more time in your buff window, still some time left that you can use to press your Winged Muse, your creature muse attack, like whatever your creature muse attack is that you have. Hopefully your creature blast attack immediately after, Mog of the Ages, or Retribution of the Medine. That would be great to put under buffs too. And maybe you can also fit in like 1 hammer. I tried very hard to try to fit in 3 hammers in buffs, but I think it's just, I don't know. I don't think you can do it. One other thing is that your motifs are instant cast when you're out of combat. It's really good, but it can also be pretty annoying if you're very forgetful like me in a dungeon scenario, because there were times when I just forgot to recast my motifs when I could do it instant cast out of combat. And we pull the next pack and I'm like, well, crap. You know, now I don't have any motifs ready to cast my muse attacks, because if I'd remembered to do this 1 second ago, then I would have it ready. But now I've got to stand here painting. But yeah, so I think it's going to train you to make sure that you cast these motifs out instantly as soon as you can, anytime that you can, have them ready to go. I also feel like you're going to be using Swift Cast a lot to get some of these motifs on your canvas as quickly as possible during combat. Now you might see why I said, oh, this job is too complicated for me to gloss over the details, because there's so many moving parts and they all fit together in different ways, and there was so much to absorb, and it definitely was overwhelming. But that doesn't mean that the job is not cool or not fun. It just takes a little time to try to understand how all these pieces work. And after spending more time with it, and especially now that like I've had time to think about it and reflect, I'm really excited to play Pictomancer. There's so much depth to it, and there's so many ways to adapt the way you play to a particular fight. Like I'm imagining maybe some situations where you can hardcast that rainbow, and like when are you going to use your hammer, when to do different things. Like this is something that players love to dig into, and so I'm feeling really positive about Picto after letting it settle and understanding it a bit more. I also love the aesthetic and the design of Pictomancer. You have this dash button that you're like surfing on paint, and I love that. I thought that was super cool. It's a really cool job that I might need to brush up on my skills to play. Hope you like this video. If you're interested in my other media tour videos, please stay tuned to the channel, and we're going to be churning these out as quickly as possible. So just bear with us. I doubt they're all going to release on the same day, but I will try to make a playlist so you can easily go through them all. Let me know in the comment section down below how you feel about Pictomancer after, like, did I explain everything okay? Are you even more confused after my explanations? you know, did you also get tripped up with a vicious Moogle? Do you know what a Medine is? Like, I had to learn about that. Let me know in the comment section down below how you feel about Pictomancer, and if you're gonna main it, or if maybe level it first before Viper. I'd love to hear from you. So thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.